very limited information, and you may end up choosing more expensive option when there may be a cheaper option in the market. Yeah. So for me, the Habitat Fair is a great opportunity, and I believe that prospective home buyers will benefit a lot more from it if they take advantage of it.
Beautiful. Now, your expertise, or one of your expertise, has to do with the real estate business. When we talk about real estate, what is it all about?
Quite interesting. So, real estate, a lot of the time, I believe you hear other terminologies for it. So, terms like land or even real property. It turns out that they may be very different, but real estate in particular actually refers to land and anything that is on it, within it, beneath it, and then above it. And usually we refer to things that are also attached to it, either permanently or artificially, as also real estate. And so the buildings and the land, what a lot of the time we would refer to as real estate.
But Doc, aside from that, I mean, you talk about the things that are on the land and beneath the land and all that. When it comes to the real estate business, is it possible for an individual who wants to own a house in that enclave, come and say, I don't want you to build for me. I want to buy a land in your real estate company in that enclave, and then build myself. Is that part of what you people do?
Yes, but for our company now, we are not selling land. We are looking out for opportunities in the developed communities to redevelop, right? So we have these old structures that are ready for redevelopment, and those are the structures we are looking for to redevelop into apartments. Yeah, but perhaps let me look at it broadly. It is the case that in Ghana, most people would tend to build their own houses, and you look at the home ownership rate in Ghana, which is about 48%. A lot of the people who own their houses actually build their own houses. And so I should expect that that trend would continue into the future. Yeah.
I see. Now, tell me this. Do people really appreciate what it brings? I'm referencing real estate here. Do people appreciate what it brings or presents when it comes to housing needs, or when it comes to the real estate business itself? There are some myths in there that we need to appreciate and understand.
Yes. If I understand you quite well, I think the real estate business is a very important aspect of our national development, and it solves quite a number of problems. I'll focus on one thing. As an individual, if you need to build a house, you must first have the expertise, right, to be able to buy land, buy the building materials, and even supervise the process if you are not willing to pay someone to do that, right? And so it requires a lot of expertise to do that. What real estate development companies do is that they mobilize these resources, these expertise, and they are able to put that to a very good use for individuals who want to buy property or who want to acquire property. Another area where I find real estate development companies beneficial to us is in the area of land acquisition. You know that a typical Ghanaian will buy land for a number of times, maybe 2 or 3 times. Why? Because the vendors will tend to sell the same parcel of land to multiple people, right? What real estate development companies do is that they are able to help to reduce this element of, or this phenomenon of multiple sales. And even where there's multiple sales, they are able to deal with it in a more efficient way and then transfer that benefit to prospective homeowners. And so this is an area where I think real estate development companies are very, very important to our national development.
I think one other importance of the real estate business has to do with the usage of land, because you get land and then you build in such a way that many people can benefit from it. Unlike where individuals buy the land and they just build some small house on it, and then the land seems to be wasted. And of course, we live in a world where we're not going to have any more lands, are we? But are there any myths surrounding the real estate business that we need to know of? And how well would you say real estate business is in Ghana?
Okay, yeah, there are so many of them, David. Maybe I'll touch on just about three of them. So the first one is that all surveyors are land surveyors. And I think this is very, very important because surveyors are the kind of professionals you need throughout your building or home acquisition journey. So, for instance, if you need to buy land, chances are that you come across a land surveyor who would help you demarcate the boundary of the land, help you prepare the site plan, and even guide you through the registration process and so on. But it turns out that in Ghana, whenever you mention the name of a surveyor, a lot of people immediately think about the land surveyor. And it is true that many people, the land surveyor is a very important surveyor in the real estate market. But then also there are other types of surveyors whose services are extremely important. And so we have what is called, or a group of surveyors called the valuation and estate surveyors. And they are the type of people who would help you price and put value on your land. So for example, you want to sell your property and you don't know how much to sell it for. It is the job of the valuation and estate surveyor to help you determine an appropriate price for your property, right? You are looking for property to buy and you don't know where to buy property from. You know, location is a very important part of real estate. The job of the valuation and estate surveyor is to help you choose the best location as well, right? And then you have the quantity surveyor, whose job is it to help you cost your building project, right? It is, you know, there's a scripture in the Bible which makes reference to the fact that it is prudent for you to, you know, cost your building before you even set out to undertake it, right? And so the quantity surveyor's job is to help you cost the building process. And in many cases, they also help you to manage the construction process, right? And so there's a broad range of surveyors who provide different services in the real estate market. And so all surveyors are not land surveyors. The other myth I have identified in our real estate market is that real estate is only for the wealthy people. This is valid in some sense that, or to the extent that real estate is capital intensive, right? You need a lot of money to buy real estate. I mean, the last time I did a survey of house prices in Ghana, I realized that the average house price in Ghana is well over $100,000. And yet the average salary in Ghana, monthly salary in Ghana, is just about 1,700 Ghana cedis. So the question is, how many Ghanaians have $100,000 to buy a house, right? But and so that is true to some extent. But the point I want to make is that very often the reason why this is true is because of the lack of mechanisms and vehicles for people to buy houses. So think about it. If you are thinking about just buying a house for yourself, you know, then chances are that you will face this limitation. But think about it, if you are thinking about collaborating with other people, say your friends, to buy a parcel of land and then develop it together, chances are that the cost of putting up that structure may be very low because you end up sharing the cost of the land and even the cost of putting up the structure. And you may enjoy some economies of scale in collaborating with your friends to be able to do that. And so real estate is not only for the rich. There's also another myth in the real estate market, which is that it is better to wait for the perfect time to buy. And there's some truth in it anyway, because the real estate market experiences what we call cycles. So there are periods when property prices are very high because demand for property is very high. And there are periods when property prices tend to decline because demand for property prices for property also decline. And so obviously as a rational investor, you want to buy when prices are low, right? But it turns out in Ghana that property prices hardly fall. They hardly fall. And so if you are waiting for the perfect time, that perfect time is today, and you have to buy now. Else you end up paying a premium for the same parcel of land that you did not buy some time ago. But then again, there's a caveat here. In as much as it is important to buy property and wait, as a lot of people and a lot of the real estate people say, it is also important for us to note that that maxim or that adage or that saying applies depending on the investment strategy a person is adopting. You see? So for instance, buy property and wait is very beneficial to land speculators. So people who buy land, they wait for the area to develop, and then the property values appreciate, and then they sell the land for a premium. You get it? For someone, an investor who is looking forward to maximizing income from, say, a building he has put up, buying property and waiting may not be the best strategy for such a person. And so it is important that before you venture into real estate, you must identify your goal, and that goal should match the type of investment strategy you adopt. And then maybe I would focus on the last myth here, which is that location doesn't matter. I've spoken to a lot of people who agree with this saying that buy land and wait. Or in other words, we don't wait to buy land, but we buy land and wait. And a lot of the time, they seem to undermine the importance of location, right? Unfortunately for them, it is true that that strategy might work, but location has been found to be one of the most important factors to consider in real estate investing, because it influences many things. It influences the value of the property. It influences the availability and accessibility to amenities, transportation infrastructure, and so on and so forth. And for us in Ghana, where we experience a bit of mismanagement of our cities and our towns, it turns out that our towns eventually grow into slums. And so, depending on where your property is located, the value of that property might decline if that area becomes a slum. And so you want to buy property in a location that is experiencing growth. And by growth, I mean healthy growth, where fiscal development is well managed, and so on. And you realize that a lot of the time, the real estate companies are able to provide that benefit because of these gated communities and the rules governing what home buyers can do with their property. They tend to manage the fiscal development aspect very well, and that helps with value appreciation. So, David, these are some of the myths I have found in the real estate market.
And there are brilliant myths that you have, touched on or talked about. I just want to ask a few questions on some of the things you've talked about, maybe two or three. But listeners, in case you just joined us, this is Love 99.5, and we have about 9 more days to go for the Republic Bank Love FM Habitat Fair 2024. And on the phone lines, we have Dr. Kenneth Appiah Donkor Shiaman. Dr. Shiaman is a lecturer with the Department of Land Economy, KNUST. He's a mortgage finance development expert and also a real estate and mixed asset investment portfolio analyst. And he's shared a lot of information with us. Now, about the myths, I have about 2 or 3 questions. Let me touch on the very first one. Now, the first one has to do with the fact that you asked a question as to how many Ghanaians, looking at how much we are paid at the end of a month, can either buy or build. And you tagged the monthly salary around 1,700. And one suggestion you professed is the fact that friends or maybe colleagues can come together and then invest and do this. Looking at us as Ghanaians, is this something that we really would want to do? To come together with a friend or friends or some colleagues at work and say we're going to build or we're going to buy in one particular area and live at? Hello, Dr. Shiaman, did you hear my question?
David, yes. So it's it's a very interesting thing. I am looking at the 2021 housing population and housing census, and it turns out that a few years ago, compound houses were the majority of the dwellings that Ghanaians lived in. Now, it turns out that detached homes are the majority of the dwellings that Ghanaians live in. And so increasingly, people are becoming individualistic as opposed to being communal in the way they live. And that, in a way, is creating some of the problems that many people are facing. Individuals want to own their own homes, and even though they cannot afford it. But then if we come together and collaborate, as I have mentioned earlier on, there's a possibility that we can reduce costs, we can benefit from economies of scale, and at the end of the day, all of us will become homeowners. Yes, so culturally, it turns out that a lot of Ghanaians are becoming extremely individualistic, and which I think has implications for home ownership. I believe that if we go back to collaboration, there are a lot of benefits that can be generated from that.
And again, it doesn't come as a surprise to me based on what you're saying, because again, according to the Ghana Statistical Service, 3 out of every 10 homes that people begin to build, they're not able to complete them. So when you go around, you realize that people have begun to build houses, and for lack of resources and funds and other reasons, they're not able to complete those buildings. One other myth you touched on that I want to ask a question on has to do with the fact that it's only in Ghana where, not only necessarily in Ghana, but it's in Ghana where prices always go up and never comes down.
Yeah.
What else, or what makes such properties come down? I mean, when it comes to the pricing, what makes them come down, and why can't we get same in Ghana?
Yes, interestingly, scholars believe that there's a problem with our property market in terms of how it is designed. The fundamental of price determination is the interplay of demand and supply, right? And so when demand exceeds supply, fundamentally, you should expect prices to go up, right? And that is because you have a lot of money chasing fewer goods in the market. And then, in simple terms, the opposite is also true. When you have more supply of real estate than is demanded, you should have prices falling. One of the reasons why property prices keep going up in Ghana is because we are unable to supply enough to meet the demand for property, especially in the low and middle income housing market, right? So you find that demand tends to exceed supply, and that is one of the reasons why prices keep going up. Then again, it's also got to do with pricing. You realize that a lot of the properties on the market are priced in dollars. And so as our cedi weakens, the houses become more expensive to the average Ghanaian. So these are two of the basic reasons why property prices keep going up in our market. One, because we are unable to build enough to meet the demand, and two, because of dollarization.
Now, what would be your advice to a young man who wants to own his own, home, to buy or to build?
It's a yes and a no for me. Yes and a no because, one, if you have the resources to buy, it is very good. And the reason is this. So somewhere in 2017, some colleagues of mine published a paper titled The Difficult Combination of Renting and Building a House in Ghana. They observed that because a lot of Ghanaians prefer to build, a lot of the time they would end up renting a house where they pay rent, and then over a period of time, they'll try to put up their own structure. That is costly because you end up paying money to someone when that money could actually be invested in your own property, right? That is if you use a mortgage to buy your house. And so if you have the resources, for instance, to buy your own house, let's say through a mortgage, I think it is a very good thing to do. Then again, the reason why a mortgage is very important and a lot of Ghanaians need to understand this instrument or vehicle, is that, you see, the government actually has an incentive for people who buy houses using mortgages. When you read the Income Tax Act of 2015, there's a provision somewhere, I think in the 6th schedule, paragraph 4, subparagraphs 3 and 4, where the interest rate that you pay as part of your mortgage is actually tax deductible. So tax deductible means that the government will, before you are taxed or before your income is taxed, the government allows you to pay the interest on your mortgages, thereby leading to a lower amount of tax payment. And so there's a benefit in using a mortgage to buy a house. It turns out, unfortunately, that most Ghanaians are unable to afford a mortgage because of partly because of this individualistic approach to home acquisition. Yes, and there's a few people, perhaps there's about 3% of Ghanaians have access to mortgages, and usually they are those who are high income. They are rich people who may actually not need these mortgages. They are the people who are actually benefiting from it. And so I believe that if we begin to work more collaboratively, we can take advantage of this incentive that the government provides in our tax code. Then again, for those who may not be able to obtain a mortgage to buy a house immediately, I believe that they can equally construct their own houses gradually and more flexibly as and when they have the resources to be able to do that. And for me, this is where I also believe the Habitat Fair provides an opportunity for them to shop for building materials in a way that will help them save resources. So yes, if you want to buy because you have the resources to do that, it is fantastic. If you want to build, it is also great. And I'll even add to this. One of the reasons why a lot of people want to build sometimes is that they have a different taste from what the developers tend to provide. And sometimes in as much as many developers in Ghana provide quality, there are a few whose products are inferior. And I've met a number of people who have argued on this basis. And I said that they are building because they attempted to buy some houses, and upon inspection, they realized that the houses were of inferior quality. So perhaps many more people would want to deal with developers if the quality of houses they supply becomes standardized and are higher for them. Yes.
But let me ask a few more questions on some of the things you've talked about, Dr. Sherman. First of all, when it comes to the taste, does the buyer have a say, or can the buyer come to some kind of agreement with the developer in terms of the taste, such that what the developer would do will suit the buyer? And aside from that, you talked about the fact that we live in a country where people would prefer to build than to buy because of some of the challenges in there. What will it take for us to be able to get more people? Has it got to do with the pricing and the terms of payment that would enable more people to say, well, we are going to buy instead of build? So 2 questions in one. First of all, does the developer consider the taste of the buyer? And if we want to get more people to buy, can we say flexible terms of payment will be put together such that people will be comfortable to be able to acquire the house and then pay in bits or installments?
Okay. So, David, I've consulted on many projects in the area of market analysis. So what happens is that before developers put up their project, they start with a feasibility study. And in that feasibility study, they do what is called market analysis. So in the market analysis, they try to find out what buyers are looking for in terms of the characteristics of the product and so on and so forth. And that helps them to develop a product that the market is looking for. You get it? The risk in not doing that is that you end up developing a product that people don't actually want. You get it? Now, market and feasibility studies are very expensive. They are very expensive. And so you would realize that depending on the size of the developer, they may do a very comprehensive market research, or they may do a very shallow market research. And that has implications on the type of product they put up on the market, right? And so look at the structure of our real estate market. There are just a few big shops in there. Many of the development companies that are putting up structures are small scale to medium scale development companies. And this cost in terms of feasibility might form a substantial part of their cost. And some of them may choose to, avoid it. And so, yes, it is true that many of them conduct market research to be able to come up with a product that the market will like. Then again, the reason why you might find a difference between what the market is looking for and what developers have supplied is that many of our developers tend to target the high end of the market. And usually they are targeting foreigners, people with Forex who can buy those properties, or Ghanaians living abroad who have superior income who can afford those properties. And so you realize that to a large extent, the product on the market may not necessarily meet the needs of the Ghanaian who is living in Ghana, who is low and middle income. The other question, can you remind me of the other question, please?
Do with, first of all, having payment plan to make people have more interest, in buying than to build.
Yes. So many years ago, the payment plans you saw in the market was outright purchase. So you either had all the money to buy the property or you didn't. And if you had it, hooray, you had access to the property. And those who didn't have to look for other options. Now, over time, we have seen an evolution in terms of payment plans and so on and so forth. So what we've seen that there are some developers who would actually break the cost into different tranches. So some of them are doing first you put down, you do a 30% deposit. When the project is maybe up to the lintel level, you put up another 20%. When the roofing is complete, you put up another 30%. When all the fixtures are completed, you then settle the remainder of the money. And so this kind of payment plans are beginning to emerge in the real estate market. And it is enabling a lot of people to afford this type of housing. One of the reasons why this is also very good is that a lot of Ghanaians earn informal income. And so these are not the type of incomes that are verifiable, that are regular incomes. And so it turns out that they may actually be able to mobilize the tranches of payment informally when those options are made available to them, right? And so I think there's a need for more of these payment options in the market because it helps to improve affordability and helps to improve access to home ownership.
Well, there's a question of mine in the studio. He's my co-host. His name is Leo Stanley. He has a question for you.
Doc, are we not overlooking the fact that we can use cheaper materials, because it looks like everybody wants a concrete house, but then we don't have the money to pay for it? How about looking at options like using conventional materials and sustainable ones that are cheaper?
Yes. So once again, I was looking at the 2021 population and housing census, and somewhere in the 60s, more than 50% of our houses were made of mud, or what we call laterite. Today, and less than 50% were actually made of cement and concrete. Today, we have the reverse. More than 60% of our homes are made of concrete materials or cement-based material. Now, it is part of the reason why our houses are expensive, because the cement, the materials used in manufacturing the cement, the clinker, is imported into the country, and it is affected by imported inflation, exchange rate movements, and so on and so forth. And so that adds to our cost. It is part of the reason why cement prices keep going up. And for that matter, house prices also keep going up. Then again, we seem to have a taste or have developed a taste for, foreign building materials like tiles and so on and so forth. In our building code, the old building code, it used to be the case that cement-based products were actually the recommended standard. And that is what has fueled, our penchant for cement-based housing and all of that. I believe that there's a lot of opportunity in moving away from cement-based housing because one in terms of sustainability, then also because in terms of pricing, it is possible to build houses much more cheaply than using mud or even ramp earth, than using this cement-based approaches. But it turns out that there's a need to do further research. Of course, when you listen to the BRI, they will tell you that they have come up with various technologies, various products that can be used. But it turns out that adoption of those technologies and products is quite low. And for me, this is where I think there's a need for leadership. The government needs to show more leadership in this area if the government is interested in encouraging Ghanaians to use more indigenous material. So look at it. Many of the affordable housing projects the government has undertaken, virtually none of them, right, uses this laterite product or this locally developed technology. I believe that those projects, can provide leadership if they adopt those technologies and show that those materials are durable and can be used. And people would look at those examples and begin to replicate them accordingly.
But you know what? One interesting thing that I found out somewhere last year during the Habitat Fair, when we're having such conversations, was that instead of using the iron rods that are quite expensive, we can fall on the usage of bamboo to fortify the building. So we replace bamboo and use iron rods and use bamboos. I never knew. So I'm happy when you say that leadership should take up these things and champion it. Dr. Kenneth Appiah Donkor Shiaman, thanks very much for your time. We are grateful to you. He's a lecturer with the Department of Land Economic, KNUST. He's also a mortgage finance development expert and a real estate and mixed asset investment portfolio analyst as well. We're grateful to you, sir, for your time with us this morning. God bless.
Thank you, David, and thank you to you.
Well, so Leo, gradually we're getting there. 9 more days to go.
Yeah.
And I love the things that people come and display. Based on the answer he gave, the final answer he gave to that question, I'm hoping that we'll get on board people who have produced, manufactured local stuff.
Applicable.
That are solid, that can really do the work. Last time when we heard about the usage of bamboo to replace, what do you call it? Iron rods. Yeah. I was like, if indeed it is true, why can't we build more bamboos?
Yeah.
And bamboo are not difficult to cultivate or to grow.
Yeah.
You just need some waterlogged area, and then you're good to go.
Yeah,
so instead of we doing the lamsey and destroying the lands, why don't you grow bamboo? Maybe in terms of the land, reclamation, we can grow more bamboo and use it for our building, infrastructural works.
The benefits on biodiversity is just immense, and it makes sense if you are not putting up 3-story, 4-story buildings and it's a detached house, normal for your family. Why would you, risk using iron rods when bamboo is cheaper and even more durable
and stronger?
Well,
get ready for a game changer. I'm speaking to the SMEs out there. Now, we are introducing YellowBiz, our new multi-service bundle with everything you need for smarter business solutions. Now, this all-in-one package consists of 4G plus router with 10 gigabytes of free data, Microsoft Office 365, genuine Microsoft applications, the WebWays, a customized business web site for your business, Unicom service, a unified business communication solution for your virtual call center, IVR, and of course, conferencing needs. All for a very good deal. You don't want to miss on this at all. So with the MTN YellowBiz, your business will gain access to advanced productivity tools, a powerful online presence, and superior customer experience to optimize your operations. Now, to stay ahead of competition, you need to call 100, or you can call 0244-308-111, or send a mail to mtnbusiness.gh@mtn.com, or visit mtn.com.gh/business, or any MTN office for your yellow biz, and stay connected everywhere you go. Terms and conditions apply. Yo, Stanley, look sharp. So I'm